All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Simple Songwriting, episode 5. We are talking about Ariana Grande today. We're doing the song That Boy Is Mine specifically, but I think we're also going to talk a little bit about the album Eternal Sunshine in general. And yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting episode. I think Aubrey and I might be a little bit, we might differ a little bit on this one.
Yeah. I think there's gonna be some good points of contention, I guess is the word I'm gonna use.
I think that'll be just fine. I've got no problems with that. So before we get into the great Ariana debate, what have you been listening to this week?
So actually I listened to a couple albums, new to me albums. I discovered Benson Boone, which I had heard actually one song of him. I just didn't know who he was.
Yeah, he's got that song, Please Stay.
Yes. Well, that's the one that I knew, but like I heard it kind of funnily enough first by one of those bands. I can't remember their name, but they literally just tour and they do covers of like a pop punk album, like touring group. Like I don't know if they have originals. I can't remember the name of the group. But they like it was on Instagram and they're like, come see us perform all these great like pop punk hits, you know? And that was one that they did. And I was like, that sounds like a freaking banger. And then I was listening to the album Fireworks and Rollerblades, and that song was on the album. And I was like, oh, I know this guy. I just didn't know that I knew him.
So it's funny because they play that a lot at work. I actually like the song, but I've gotten so sick of hearing it at work. So no hate to Benson Boone. It's actually a really good song. And then there's another song he's got, I think that's pretty popular, but I can't remember what it is. But yeah, he's cool. I like him. I like him. Definitely a nice, like a different direction for some pop music or pop alternative, whatever you want to call it. So
so I listened to his first two albums, I should say. And then I actually went back and listened to some Macklemore this week. I don't know why. I kind of like, everybody knows our thrift shopping, poppin' tags, whatever it's called. And then I feel like everybody forgets that he's released. Maybe not everybody. I shouldn't say everybody, but I kind of forget that he has other music. Outside of like his first two albums. So I went back and listened to some of his more recent stuff this past week.
I never really got into Macklemore. I was never super into him. Obviously I heard Thrift Shop, but I haven't listened to any of his other stuff. I don't know if it's any good or not.
I think it's fine. It's nothing, obviously I think if it was like earth shattering, we would know about it.
Right.
But it's not bad. It's just, I think, it's Macklemore.
Yeah. Very cool. I went down just not a big one, but like a little Sabrina Carpenter rabbit hole. I don't know if you've listened to her at all, but she's kind of the big hot thing right now, like on the charts. She's got that song Espresso. I don't know if you've heard that.
I'd have to hear it. That name sounds familiar, but I feel like
it goes kind of like a thinking about that's that me espresso.
No, okay, definitely don't know that one. Then
you should check it out. It's actually a pretty solid song. And then she's got this other song called Please 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 that's kind of getting big now too. But that one's kind of funny because she does these like, I swear I think it's like a 4-part harmony throughout almost the whole song. It's actually a little bit too much, I think, but it's still cool that she's doing it. And so she's definitely talented, and the songs are pretty catchy. So it's cool. Yeah, like she's fun. So I've been digging her. And then also I heard new Post Malone. He did a song with Blake Shelton, and I gotta say it's kind of interesting to me because now he's done a song with Morgan Wallen is it Wallen? Morgan Wallen?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and then he did the song with Blake Shelton, and I just you know Post Malone has some pretty good songs. Like he's a solid songwriter, pretty good singer. And I just find it funny. Like one day he just woke up and decided to make the most corporate dog shit country music imaginable. I just cannot stand what he.
I
No way, no way. You're not about to say that
so
shit.
he's been talking about really wanting to release a country album for forever. Not for forever, but for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it. Like
Have you
I want
heard
to
the
listen to
songs?
that. I have not. I have not.
Okay. So here's the
But
thing. We talked about
I'm
it a
here for
little.
it.
I would be here for it. I don't have any problem with people doing it, but and I talked about this a little bit on another episode. But like basically, country got big a few years ago because of Zach Bryan. Specifically, Zach Bryan did something very different from other artists, where like most of country music a few years ago was just this very corporate like my truck and my girl down a dirt road. Like it was just this generic crap,
What
and it
what are we
wasn't.
calling a couple of years ago? Just so I know.
Well, here's the thing. It's still like that in general, but people had honestly started to just tune out of country. Like country was not doing anything. It was kind of just dead in the water. And then like I would say about 2 years ago, maybe even less. I'll have to check when Zach Bryan released like Somewhere in the Orange and Leaving Austin, because those are like his two big hits. Um, in fact, let me check it real quick. Somewhere in the Orange. Uh, Yeah, 2022. So Zach Bryan released 2022 something in the orange, and he basically revitalized country music. Like he totally revitalized country as a whole because he brought it back to its roots. If you go and listen to those songs like Leaving Austin and Something in the Orange, they're actually brilliant, heartfelt, like raw, real country songs. And it was, I when I heard it and I saw how popular they were getting, I was like, oh, thank God. Like this is kind of I felt like it was a wake up call to all of the country artists that like, yeah, this is what country's kind of supposed to be. Like this is I'm not saying you can't have like, well produced, poppy, fun country songs, but like at its essence, country is about the country. It's about, real raw stuff. And so when he made those songs and they went so big, it's like, oh, cool, this should be a change in country. Instead, what's happened? No, we've had other artists like Khan. Noah Khan, have you heard
Noah
him?
Khan. Yeah. I like
Yeah,
Noah Khan.
yeah, and he's really good too. He's another example of that like red dirt country, that like very raw and real country. But instead,
I
all
would
of
say
these,
Noah Khan's more like a folk indie kind of guy than a country, but I could see how you could lump him into like some country.
maybe it's less about like the specific genre and more about like taking music back, like making popular music that is actually like real to a degree,
I can get behind that. Yeah, for sure.
And so that's the thing. You'd think like, oh, this is cool. Like this should be a reminder that like maybe we've gotten just a little too overproduced with all of our songs. And actually, that's kind of what I thought was happening there. Was like, I think it's still happening. I think that's why all the pop artists are coming to country, because pop and rap specifically got way too overproduced, way too like corporate, robotic sounding. And I think at its core, people want something that's human, and so now, but see, the problem is now what's happening is you have Beyonce and Post Malone and whoever else jumping over into country music. And I mean, when I say it, but like Post Malone specifically jumps over into country and he makes the exact type of country that Zach Bryan like pushed, like he inadvertently pushed back against by making the type of country that he made, which was real. Go listen to the Post Malone songs, because in my opinion, again, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit today, the songs aren't bad, but they're nothing. They're just bland corporate country. And it's exactly the type of country that I was getting sick of, and I think a lot of people got sick of. And that's why Zach Bryan got popular to begin with, was because it wasn't this. So anyway, that is yeah. Go check those out.
I will.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I was in the car with my girlfriend and we were listening to it, and it's, she's a huge Post Malone fan, and even she was like, "Well, I didn't like it," and it's like, because it's nothing, like it's just a nothing song. The song's called "Pour Me a Drink," and it's just why don't you pour me a drink? All right, whatever. So, and again, I'm not saying it can't be fun, but it's and we'll talk about that today. Actually, it's nothing. It's meaningless. It's empty, and that's the opposite of Zach Bryan's music, which felt extremely real, extremely raw, and authentic and human. So,
I will say, like, I'm not super well versed in the world of country music, but I do feel like recently, in the past couple of years, that country has been taking more of a turn towards its, like, I guess, quote unquote, truer roots. Like, I was not a big fan of like the pop country era that happened, and I guess probably still is happening. But I feel like now we're getting more artists that are a little bit more like, quote unquote, true country. Maybe true country is not the word to use, but like more
yeah,
instrument, less poppy, I guess, because the pop country stuff I'm really not a big fan of.
and that's exactly what I'm saying. That's pretty much what the Post Malone songs are. And I think that's why people started to tune out of country, was because it wasn't even really country anymore. It's not what you associate with country. It's kind of like, it honestly makes me think of like when Eminem came out with that Revival album where he had like every pop singer in the world on it. It's like, I don't think Revival's the worst album ever made. In fact, I like a lot of the songs on there, but it's like, okay, are you still a rapper? Like, or are you a pop artist? And is this what rap is? There's nothing, and I guess this is another point, is like, there's nothing wrong with switching genres and trying out a new genre, but
unless you're Machine Gun Kelly.
Shit. The thing is like, if you're going to try a new genre out, like if you're going to switch genres, I think it's part of like the due diligence that you need to do to make sure that you're still being creative in that new genre. So like, I think the big example of this to me, like honestly, was Linkin Park. When Linkin Park started making pop music, and in my opinion, it was extremely generic pop music. And I don't think all pop music is generic. In fact, I think there's lots of really great creative pop artists, and you can have good pop music, but there is bad pop music, or there is just boring pop music. And so if you're going to go from like Linkin Park being like new metal or hard rock, alternative, whatever you want to call them, and then transitioning over into pop, you have to now abide by the like rules and genre standards of pop, in this, not in the sense that like you need to follow the rules, but you need to understand them and then find ways to be creative within them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in this case, it's like, if Post Malone's going to make a country song, that sounds great. In theory, I would love to hear it. The problem is that he's making just really bland, boring, generic country music. And so just because it's new for him doesn't mean that the music itself is anything new or special. And that's the trap if you're going to switch genres. Machine Gun Kelly honestly did the same thing when he switched over into pop punk, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it's solid pop punk. It's not like it's bad, but no one's
revolutionary.
Exactly. Like, no one's sitting there saying like, "Oh my God, Machine Gun Kelly made the most amazing pop punk music." No, it's very generic pop punk, and so that's how I feel about switching genres. If you're gonna do it, you still have to be creative in the genre that you switch over to. So,
yeah.
Whew. All right. Well, on that note, unless there was anything else, you want to get into it?
Yes, but we need to remind our listeners to listen to the song first, which we have not been doing the past few episodes.
Yes. In fact, for this one, I would say go and listen to the song, and then go and listen to the remix that was released like a week or two ago.
Yeah.
because that we're going to talk about it a little bit, and I actually think it's worth talking about.
Honestly, the album's so short, you could just listen to the whole album.
It's very true, and we're going to probably talk about the album as a whole a little bit today too. So yeah, go check it out, and let's get into it. So let's just start with overall like personal opinions. Do you want to go first?
I think you should go first, Cam.
You think I should go first?
I think
All
you
right.
should.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about this song first, and then maybe after we get done talking about this song, or throughout talking about this song, we'll talk about the album.
Yeah.
I think this song and kind of the album in general, I think isn't necessarily terrible. It's not bad. Like, in fact, there's a lot of like songwriting things that this album and this song do right. So
Did we actually say what song we're talking about off the album? Sorry, just before you go down the
I
rabbit
said
hole.
I said it at the beginning, but yeah, we're talking about "That Boy Is Mine" by Ariana Grande. So yeah, I don't think this is the worst song ever made. Let me be very clear on that. In fact, my issue is that this song is actually quite bland and lame and boring. It does things well, but it doesn't do anything amazing. It's not terrible, but it's not like good. In general, I think that this song is just the epitome of a corporation, like corporate music culture, getting the team of songwriters together with the specific and singular goal of creating a pop hit, and just spending I will give the song credit. It sounds like there was a lot of time and energy put into it, but it sounds so soulless and meaningless. There is no deeper artistic merit in this song. It is just the epitome of bland and boring. And I think one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it was because I'm tired of this trend that we seem to have right now, where just because something isn't like terrible, or just because something is sounds pleasing to the ear, or I like that melody, or I thought that was fun, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good or fulfilling to listen to, and so it's like you and I talked about. There's this sense right now, I think, with a lot of things, but with music as well, where there's just this sense of like emptiness and meaninglessness in the art that we consume nowadays. And I think it's because we keep tolerating stuff like this, where it's like, okay, it doesn't do anything wrong. And I'm going to point that out. Like, there's not like a giant flaw on the album. In fact, it's been meticulously combed over, and any flaw has been removed. And so there's no risk, there's no reward, there's nothing to it. And I think because of that, the music is stale and bland and ultimately unfulfilling. So yeah, and that's how I feel about it. It's not the worst thing, but it's nothing. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have with music today. At least back in like I feel like back in like the 80s or 90s, when somebody put out a bad song, it's like, oh man, that's just bad, But nowadays we have it down to such a science that it can be like, oh yeah, like it's not bad, it's just whatever. And that's how most of the music is. It's kind of like the Post Malone song. It's not. You'll go and listen to it. It's not bad, but it's just nothing. So that's how I feel about this song. I think it's very emblematic of a lot of the issues we have with our music today, and in fact is one of the reasons I wanted to start the show, because I'm like, I think a lot of people will sit around and go like, man, none of this music does anything for me anymore, and I don't know why. And most people aren't going to sit down and talk about a 3-minute Ariana Grande song for 2 hours. But I want to do that, and I want to hopefully explain why this is meaningless, why it's unfulfilling, and why, you as the listener, should raise your standards for the music that you consume and appreciate. So there
Do
you
you
go.
feel like so a couple questions.
Hmm.
And do you feel like and I don't think with this song specifically, but talking about, the norm, do you feel like cancel culture is playing a role in artists' decisions to quote unquote play things safe?
Um,
Or do you feel like I guess it kind of depends on the artist, right?
well, I
Um
think here's the thing. I think music is kind of interesting, right? Because I don't know if cancel culture. So if we're going to talk about something like cancel culture, right? This idea, which cancel culture is essentially this idea that if somebody does something, so hold on, let's just clarify. There are people who do bad things, and the people who do bad things should be like sent to trial, sent to prison, things like that, right? So, but when we talk about something like cancel culture in like the way that it's kind of spoken about nowadays, it's really discussing almost like the meme of it, of like, oh, you said something, you're going to get canceled, and that premise, like that like thought process there behind cancel culture is essentially, oh, somebody said something that I disagree with, and even if it's like inane and meaning and like inconsequential to my life, I do not like that they said that, and therefore I want to stop them from saying it. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. I at least want to be clear before I go into it. I don't think that cancel culture specifically has anything to do like with the music. I think it definitely has to do with like TV shows and other media. But with music, I think if it does have something to do with it, it's more of like a subconscious thing where like I think how can I put it? Like if there a song comes out and it isn't immediately pleasing to your ear, or if the artist takes a risk and does something that's kind of weird or unorthodox, and like there's just something that doesn't quite fit at first, or a lyric that seems aggressive or offensive to your sensibilities. I don't know if it's necessarily cancel culture. It's more of like just this intolerance for uh, difficulty, essentially, this like inability to deal with challenge. And so the idea that music can challenge you and actually push you and make you and expose you to like thoughts and perspectives that you haven't had before, I think that's just been totally removed from modern like views of music. Does that
okay.
make sense?
Yeah. For
Um,
sure. I just thought it was like an interesting point of conversation given what we were talking about.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'm trying not to. I'm gonna do better about not referencing Avenged Sevenfold every single episode. Okay, so let's just start there. But I want to bring them up real quick, and I want to bring up their latest album, "Life Is But a Dream," because I think that album is a perfect example of like if the normal person were to just listen to like I don't know, if they were just to listen to nobody like on the radio, they'd probably be really, really annoyed by it. Or actually, a better example would be "We Love You." They'd be like, "What the fuck is this?" And I, the thing is, oh, sorry, I cussed. The thing is it's like the idea that a song will purposefully do things to make you uncomfortable because that's the message of the song is like crazy to most people now. It's like I don't want to listen to something that makes me uncomfortable. Why would I listen to something that makes me uncomfortable? It's like, well, that's part of the human experience is being uncomfortable. And so if the song is meant to capture that, that's what it's doing. It's like, yeah, but why would they do that? It's like, do you not understand? And that's a perspective. Like, is that making sense? It's like,
yeah. So my brain goes two ways here, and I don't want us to talk about this forever. But my
no,
first thought is like this is what happens when we give a whole generation participation trophies.
yeah, no, it is. It is the problem. It's like you can't deal with a loss or difficulty or struggle, and in fact, you become avert, like what's the word? Averse to it. Like you don't even want to deal with it at all. to such a degree that a song that makes you uncomfortable, you suddenly can't watch it or listen to it. And actually, I think this is actually really important to talk about, because this is actually the point of the whole show and the point of this song and why I chose this song and this album. So I think this is actually a very valuable conversation to have. Um, I'm going to actually give a different example of like how this trick like clicked in my brain, because it took a little while for me to get this and like what was going on. But have you seen the movie Alien, by like the old one, the original?
No. I mean, I know the gist of like everything, but I have not seen it.
So you should watch that movie. It's a really great movie from like I think it's 1978. I want to say, fantastic movie. Basically, like it set the standard for sci-fi horror. I've always loved that movie, but there was one part, especially when I was younger, that I absolutely hated. And it's towards the end of the movie. Spoiler alert: the movie's been out for 50 years. If you haven't watched it by now, I mean, whatever. There's a point at the end of the movie where everybody's dead except for the main girl, and she is trying to start the self-destruct sequence for the ship so she can get on the escape pod and escape. But then she realizes that something goes wrong, and she realizes that she actually needs to turn off the self-destruct sequence. And so she has to. So that whole thing happens within about 10. It takes about 10 minutes. And what happens is they spend that whole 10 minutes, like she walks down the corridor, being very sneaky, trying to look out for the alien. And then once she starts the self-destruct sequence, all the alarms in the ship start going off. And so for like 10 minutes, you're just listening to wee-oo, 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 and watching her like creep through the ship, being very careful and looking for the alien. And then she, realizes, oh no, I have to go back and stop the self-destruct sequence. So then she has to sneak back through the corridors the whole time the alarm's going off. And then she finally gets back to the control board or whatever. And she's got to like undo the coolant, or like take out the explosive containers, or put in coolant or something like that. She has to do like all of these like lists of tasks to shut off the self-destruct sequence. And then it starts timing down 30, 29, 28, and it doesn't skip through that. You sit through the whole thing, and all the machines and the containers going into the thing are going super slow, and she's like tapping her hand on the table, just really impatient, like come on, hurry up. And it's just taking forever. And then finally the last one goes in right as the countdown gets to 2, 1. And the countdown is for like the final, like, okay, you can no longer reverse the self-destruct sequence. So she's trying to reverse it, but the countdown's going down. She gets the last container in, and she's like, there, it's done. And then the mothership computer says, self-destruct sequence will now initiate. It cannot be stopped. And she, after 10 minutes of this build up, listening to the alarm, sitting through these slow things, the main character just goes, you bitch. And it is like, I always hated that whole build up, but I love when she does that because it's so genuine. It's like raw. And I didn't realize it until recently, but that's how they made movies back then. Was that like, the point is that it's supposed to be boring and that it's supposed to be tedious, and you're supposed to relate to her. Like, she's bored and she doesn't like that she has to do this. And so the point is, you are having a human connection with the character on the screen. And the idea, like, there would be no movie today that would do that. They'd skip through the sequence. They'd jump right to the part where they're trying to shut it down and it won't shut down. And then they'll, it'll happen in 10 seconds. They would never dream of spending 10 minutes with the alarm blasting and have her just sneaking through the hallways and then like pressing these buttons and everything's going really slow, but she wants it to go fast. Like, that doesn't really happen as much anymore because we get our hands held through every single thing in like movies and shows. If there's a conflict, it's resolved very quickly. If there's, a boring part, it's cut down or just removed entirely. And so again, like, that's challenge. Like, in real life, there are things that are boring and tedious, and then sometimes they don't pay off and it makes you mad. And that's something that you can actually capture with art. It's part of the human experience. But if I were to explain to somebody, like, yeah, sometimes, like, you should put that in a song and capture that with a song by making a part that maybe is kind of intentionally boring and tedious or intentionally repetitive to the point where it gets on your nerves. Like, that's crazy. Hell no, you can't do that now. I don't want to listen to something bad that would make me uncomfortable. And so, yeah, I know that's a long-winded story, but like, it's crazy to me that we've completely lost that perspective on art. If it's not feel good, if it's not immediately pleasing, it's just unlistenable. So I'm gonna take some water because I just talked a lot, but yeah.
I guess like my next question would be like, and this might be better answered kind of as we talk about the album as a whole, is what made you pick this song? Because I actually felt like this was one of the better songs off the album.
So actually, I would kind of agree. Uh, this is one of the less bad songs on the album. There are actually a lot of elements of this song that I think are pretty good, and we'll talk about it. We're going to get into the song, but this was the song that when I was listening through the album, where I realized that Max Martin was producing it, because I know what Max Martin production sounds like. And I don't know if you know about Max Martin or if the listener knows about Max Martin, but I guess I'll just give a quick background. Max Martin is a very famous producer. He's probably produced a lot of the songs that you've heard from pop artists. He made, a lot of Britney Spears's hits. Like, and when I say made, I mean he literally wrote the songs and the music and the melodies and the lyrics and everything. And then they bring in the pop artist and she sings it, and then they call it her song, and that's that. Um, he's done songs for Pink, Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift. He produced Taylor Swift's 1989 album, Blank Space. Now, to be fair, Taylor Swift has gone on to become a great songwriter in her own right. So I'm not saying that to necessarily take away from Taylor Swift. And I'm not necessarily dissing Max Martin. Max Martin is actually a fantastic musician. Like, he understands melody and flow and production on a song very well. But he is the guy that you call in when you need a hit. And after you become aware of that and you listen to the songs that he's made and you understand kind of how he views music, and really specifically his goal with making music is to make a hit that sells, you can start to catch the little things. And so when I heard this chorus, that boy is mine, I can't wait to try him, I was like, that's a Max Martin melody. And I went to Wikipedia and I looked up the page up this album, and I went to the personnel, and he produced every single track on this album except for the first one. And honestly, I think the first track sucks. So yeah, that's why I picked this song, was because this was when I realized that this album is corporate garbage. And yeah, and I think this song kind of exemplifies it. This song isn't the worst song on the album by any stretch. It's actually one of the better ones. But even this song is still just bland as hell, sludge, just bleh, nothing, meaningless, trash. So
Okay.
there you go.
Um,
All right.
so I guess
Now,
yeah.
what was your last thing that you were gonna say? Or
No, I mean those are my two big questions. The going, then I guess I mean I could say it now,
Mhm.
just so I don't forget it, and then I can give my input on the album or the song and the album. But I feel like this is an album that, like, if you were an artist, and unfortunately, what you said about Avenged Sevenfold's new album, "Life Is But a Dream," like if that was Avenged Sevenfold's first album, or like if they were still in the phase of their career where they were trying to amass a lot of fans, that would not be an album to do that with.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
and I
that's
feel the same way about this album in Ariana.
mm,
Um, like, I mean, obviously, like when Life Was But a Dream, which is Avenged Sevenfold's latest album, came out, you had two groups. You had the people that were like, I'm never listening to Avenged Sevenfold again. And then you had, this is the best thing ever.
yeah,
um, and I think, you know, I think Ariana,
Oh,
it's
Aubrey, hold on. You just left for a second. Say that again.
that was yeah. I was gonna say Ariana's at a point in her career where she's had a lot of great hits and has a huge following. I mean, like
Hmm.
you know, I think they're kind of in the same boat as like Metallica.
She's definitely extremely popular.
Yeah, like everybody, no matter what Metallica puts out, it's gonna sell, whether it's great or not.
Yeah.
Um, so she can do that with and not really have to worry about, I guess, quote unquote, being successful. It's just a matter of how successful.
Well, and I think I want to make a distinction here. Usually, when an artist starts to falter, it's actually like any artist, it's actually when they become stale and boring. It's not like Avenged Sevenfold. You can say a lot of things about Life is But a Dream, but you can't say that that album is stale and uninteresting. Like that album does a ton of interesting things. You might not like them, but
Yeah.
that's part of what I mean about taking a risk as an artist. Like making something that people might not immediately like. I've seen so many people now talk about The Stage as if it's the best album ever made, and I'm like, yo, I've been saying that. I've been saying Avenged Sevenfold. Like, I've been saying The Stage is my favorite album basically since it came out. And I love
Yeah.
seeing comments on like Loudwire and Metal Injection about like The Stage is their best album, totally underrated. Like, why didn't people like this more when it came out? And I'm like, because that album was really challenging when it came out. It was kind of weird. It was a really weird album. But it's funny when you compare it to Life is But a Dream because it seems almost tame. But Life is But a Dream is very similar. It's a challenging album. It's meant to and again, it's like this crazy thing where the idea that an album would actually challenge you, there is a large percentage of people who would just consider that a bad album, who would say that, oh no, I should just like it. And if I don't like it, it's just not good. And it's like, do you not understand art and like what art is supposed to do and how it's actually supposed to expand the boundaries of your mind, you know? So anyway, that's just a little bit of a side note that I wanted to point out because you were talking about like, okay, they're at this stage in their career, but it's like, look, you really your career ends when people become bored of you and when you become stale, you know. And so whereas at least with Avenged Sevenfold, the fan base is very active and passionate when it comes to this album, and we're debating it. Do we really like this? Is G really a good song? But I think for like the Metallica album, I don't hear anyone talk about that album because it was stale and didn't take any risks, in my opinion. In fact, it was ridiculously boring. Not boring, like stale for Metallica. So anyway, sorry. You continue giving your thoughts.
Yeah. So I do think this song is very safe. I don't really feel like it pushes any boundaries or limits. I think my biggest gripe with the song is that I think the remix is a lot better.
Yeah.
And I feel that way about every song that she released, like a slightly deluxe version of the album, whatever that means. Basically, it just means it has alternate versions of the songs, of a couple songs, and I think all of the alternate versions are way better than the songs that were released on the album.
Yeah.
And and to kind of go to your point, maybe I think that because they're different and they're refreshing, like in the acoustic version of Imperfect for You or Imperfect whatever,
Yeah.
like is I think great. Maybe well, yeah, I'm gonna say great.
I'm actually gonna make a comment. I think Imperfect for You is a genuinely good song. I think it's the best
See,
song on the album, and I think it's actually a
that
good song.
that's really interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
real quick, because we're not going to talk in depth about that song,
yeah,
but I was listening through the album, and when that song came on, I literally was like, I kind of caught myself trying to find things wrong with it and trying
right.
to think of it as bad. And then I try to be really good about that, where I'm like, okay, hold up. Are you just being a hater? And I was like, no, like, don't try to find things wrong with it. Like, she's actually doing some really cool stuff on this. The chord progression was really cool. Even the guitar tone, like, it's a regular guitar part in terms of what they're playing, but I thought even the guitar tone on the album was an interesting guitar tone, kind of this really deep reverb type of thing. And then I love the whatever like note choice or change she does when she switches to that imperfect for you.
Yeah, like
Like,
that weird kind of crescendo-y thing.
yeah, it's a really interesting little change there. And to put it in the chorus for the title line, I thought was really clever. And so, yeah, I actually, if there's any song on this, it is really the only song on the album where I was like, this is a good song. Unfortunately, it's a deep track. She'll probably never do anything more with it, and nobody will ever. It probably won't get the recognition it deserves because that's not the point of this album. The point of this album is to sell the records and be uninteresting. But no, okay, I'm being haterade. But like, anyway, point is it's like, look, that's a good song, and I'm not gonna just be a hater just to be a hater. That's a solid song. So
So the first time I heard that song, listening to the album for the first time, I hated it.
interesting.
And it took me a couple times for me to come around to it. Now I think it's probably one of my more preferred songs on the album. But the very first time, I was like, I hated her little um, bum 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 bum, which is like the thing that you said you liked the most about the song.
Imperfect for you, that thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So I think that's really interesting because I hear that a lot from a lot of people on. You've probably heard it a million times. Oh, I hated that song, and then over time, it's like, oh, that's actually my favorite. And I think again, it's like that mentality of, are they doing something different? Are they pushing a
yeah,
boundary? And I think it's always like that type of stuff. That mentality when you're writing a song is almost always more fulfilling than making something that's immediately pleasing. It's like when the stage came out, the song "Goddamn" was immediately my favorite. I just loved it. It was so cool. And now I would rather listen to
like
Fermi
cringe.
Paradox.
Yeah,
It's not. I don't know if it's cringe. It's still a good song, but it's definitely was made as like the crowd pleaser of the album.
yeah, I agree.
But I would, and it's a good song, but like I would any day rather listen to something like Fermi Paradox or Higher or Paradigm or
Roman
something.
Sky.
Roman Sky. Yeah. So it's just interesting because it's like usually the songs that actually have that creativity and push some boundaries and do things a little different are the songs that stick with you over time. Um, Meanwhile, songs
So
like this, they go nowhere. They're meaningless and empty, and you don't really remember them, and you forget them as soon as you are done listening.
um, yeah, I was gonna say, I think part of the reason why my mentality was like that, why it took time for it to grow on me, is that because like the first time I listened to it, I was like, all right, Cam wants to do a song off this album. Like I'm listening to it because I have to. you know,
Right.
I
Yeah.
had a hard time making it through the album. Like I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
The
can I
first
tell you
time I
something?
listened to it,
It's funny.
go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't listen to the album. I didn't make it all the way through the album first time I listened to it, and then I decided I wanted to do this album or this song for an episode. And so then, like a couple days ago, I listened to the album all the way through for the first time, and I heard "Imperfect for You" for the first time, and I was like, "Oh shit! Like this is actually a good song." Like, so the last song is boring. The horns are cool on the last song, but they don't do anything interesting with it at all, and it just ends. I think the voicemail was uninteresting. Again, I think the last song actually kind of epitomizes the whole album, where it's like, oh, those horns are kind of cool, like that she's singing over horns, and
Hmm.
then it doesn't go anywhere at all. It means nothing, and then she puts this voicemail from her grandmother, I guess, but it's not like a deep voicemail or meaningful voicemail. It like the voicemail is just like, oh, you should kiss your husband before you go to bed. And then the album ends like, okay, all right, whatever. Like just nothing Burger. So anyway.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think overall, like the song is fine. It doesn't blow me away. Um, I've heard worse songs. Like I said, I don't think I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's good. It's just kind of there.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
do think, and maybe this is a good kind of segue or a good way to kind of wrap up, and then we can kind of do our breakdown of like I think the album as a whole kind of has like a lot of old school vibes, like early 2000s, 90s R&B, hip hop, um,
Hmm.
which I kind of appreciated. Maybe is the word I'm gonna go with. Um,
Hmm.
there's one
Um,
song and I can't remember what it was that had this really kind of like disco-y guitar, um, wah, super heavy wah to it. I was like, all right, like I'm a big disco fan. I could get down with that. I wish I could remember the song, but um, that was
yeah,
pretty much all I got to say. I feel like the album as a whole is just kind of there. I think all the remixes and alternate versions are better.
yeah.
And
Um,
yeah.
yeah, we'll talk about the remix when we get to the interlude or the bridge, um, because I think that it's actually pretty interesting, what they did, and yeah, we'll just we'll get to that then. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. Yeah, I think that that's a decent segue into into the rest of the. Or, well, like, yeah, let's start breaking down the song then. That I think that's a good little summary of where we're at with it. Give me 1 second. I'm looking something up. Uh, so okay, so let's start with the intro. So the song starts off actually with a. It's basically the pre-chorus melody, played on. I don't know if it's an instrument. It just sounds like kind of a little uh, higher pitched, or not high pitched, a more trebly uh, synth sound, but it basically sets up the pre-chorus melody that and then it kicks off what is probably my favorite musical aspect of the song, which is the bass line, which is that very like um
Yeah.
yeah, that's really, again, I'm not just going to be a hater just to be a hater. That is objectively a good song, or a good aspect of the song. Is genuinely cool. Sorry, I said the wrong thing, but yeah, I thought that that was actually pretty cool. Um, and then we just kick it off into the verse. But yeah, that intro, pretty short, 10 seconds. Sets up the melody. That's actually a really common thing. I've talked about it uh, with my girlfriend on Taylor Swift songs, where you set the melody up before, like, the most common way of doing it is like doing the chorus melody or aspects of the chorus melody in the verse or in the pre-chorus, so that way you, by the time you get to the chorus, the listener has already heard the melody of the chorus, so it already sounds familiar to them to some degree. And I don't know if it's good or bad. It's an interesting technique. um Taylor Swift does it all the time. And again, it's not, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying what it is and why they do it. By the time you get to the chorus, it sounds, you're already familiar with it, and that's almost how it can get stuck in your head. But in this case, they did it with the music. So yeah, uh,
Yeah. Um, I think the bass line uh, is my favorite part of the whole song. Um,
mhm. Yeah, it's definitely like the most. Well, it's, here's the thing. Again, the problem with the song and the album is that it's so safe. It's so smoothed over of any rough edges. And so just getting like something that's just a little bit like, has some energy, even if it's just a generic, it's not really generic, but like a cool sounding bass part, even that can be enough to make you go like, oh, hey, something. Like, so yeah, I it is definitely the part when I was listening to this song again where I was like, that's cool. That's actually interesting. So,
yeah.
but yeah,
Um,
so sorry, did you have anything else? So
No,
yeah,
I feel like I feel like worth mentioning at a later point in time, just because I feel like a lot of songs that we've talked about so far, like the intro has really kind of set the tone for the
mm,
songs, and I don't really feel like that's true here.
yeah. Um, I'm gonna talk about this maybe. I think I'll talk about this when we get to the second verse.
Okay,
But this song doesn't have a tone. Like it doesn't have anything consistent. Like you know how we were talking about Houdini by Eminem and like
right,
the beginning of each verse kind of set up a new section of the story.
yeah,
Like you could tell that he worked hard and like did that on purpose. This
right,
song doesn't do that. This song, she just we'll talk about in more detail, but I don't think there is a theme. I don't think there is
okay.
anything like there
So
is a
I
tone.
think there's a theme or a tone, but we'll talk about it when we talk about the stuff you want to talk about, because
Yeah,
I think it'll
let
make more sense to talk about it then.
definitely. Yeah, let's get to the second verse and then we'll talk about it there. So, all right, we get into the first verse though, and it's how can it be you and me might be meant to be, can't unsee it. So that she actually says it pretty catchy like um how does she say it again? Hold on, let me listen to it again. Again, it's unmemorable. I can't remember it.
How can it be you and me might be meant to be, can't unsee it, something like that.
Let me Okay, so yeah, this is definitely like kind of 90s R&B where she's like, "How can it be you and me might be meant to be can't, it's that very like kind of smooth da, da, dun, 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 na, na. I'm usually so unproblematic, so independent. Tell me why." Like very I think you brought up a good point about it being very reminiscent of like 90s R&B. And I think it is worth noting actually before we really dive in. Oh, we didn't talk about the summary of this song actually. So real quick, let's just go back just a little bit. This is from her seventh album, Eternal Sunshine, which was released 2024 this year. Um, it was produced, or this song in particular was written by Ariana Grande, Max Martin, Shintaro Yasuda, and David Dorr. But it was also based on a song from 1998 from Brandy and Monica called "That Boy Is Mine" as well. And so it is based on, and that song is straight up just 90s R&B. So it is to some extent based on a 90s R&B song, but the two don't really share a similarity other than the way that she says "that boy is mine." Like that's the only similarity between the two songs in my opinion. Um, but anyway, so she's definitely channeling like that 90s R&B style uh, in this verse. So the melody, I think a big aspect of that style actually is very fluid vocals. Like they kind of are just the melody is very much like it flows. It's not as when you think about like a metal
Yeah,
melody, it's very precise and dun 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 dun, dun but this is just it's very smooth, it flows, it goes up and down, it's not consistent, and that's part of the appeal. um
I can get behind
we
that.
Yeah. I'm going to make a comment too. The melodies in this song are not bad. The melodies are solid. Like there's nothing really like I feel like if she had had maybe some better lyrics, I would like this song much more. But again, the melodies they're not great either. They're just there. Um, but yeah, so let's get into the meaning of the words though. How can it be you and me might be meant to be, can't unsee it. But I don't want to cause no scene. I'm usually so unproblematic, so independent. Tell me why, because the boy is mine. So again, like we get into this thing where it's like it's a boy and you like a boy and it makes you feel a certain way. That's it. Like, that's it. I always feel tired. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, there's nothing to dissect. And even using it's like this weird language that these types of songs always use. Like, you know, I don't want to cause a scene. You and me might be meant to be. I'm so unproblematic, so independent. So tell me why. It's like, all right, whatever. Boys making you feel a certain way, and now you're a problem. I don't know. It's just nothing. So I don't know. Do you have anything to comment on that?
No, I mean it's straightforward. There's not much to dissect.
Yeah, it's just there. Um, I think I last thing on the verse then is there are some cool musical elements here, and I said it earlier, but they clearly put a lot of work into the song as a whole and like making the song. So there are like little nuances. Like if you just ignore her vocals and listen to the instrumental, there's these little sounds going on throughout. There's little layers, lots of interesting little things there. Um, Again, the issue is that none of them really mean anything or add anything thematically. They're just there and they sound interesting and kind of cool. So
I will say too, I feel like I did think of one thing to say. That's kind of like a classic, in my opinion, a classic Ariana move of this weird kind of when she starts a song, like talk singing thing,
yeah,
Um, yeah, which I feel like she does well. I feel like it kind of takes some skill to kind of do that, you know?
well, yeah. So she's actually a great singer.
Oh, phenomenal. I think this album and the song, like severely is lacking in showing off her vocal ability and range. Like,
Mhm.
there's no to me no wow moments from her voice in this album compared to her past albums. Like, I mean, she probably has maybe about to say a dangerous thing here, but in the past 20 years or so, one of the most iconic female voices, I would say.
Ooh, ooh.
I know. 20, I only said 20 years. So
Let
that's
me
only
let
going
me.
back to the early 2000s.
I see. Okay, I will partially agree with you. Um,
I mean, top 10. I'm saying top 10. I'm not saying like top three, but top
so
10.
I'll say this. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could say that. The problem is that I actually don't like the way that she sings. It sounds very soulless to me, and it's always been kind of the problem I have with her. I don't. It. I don't know, man. It sounds like she's just barely there. And when you realize like she's not writing the music, she's kind of I honestly this has kind of been her whole career. Like she was a Disney girl. She played
Mhm.
an idiot on some Disney girl show and like I get it. You're on a Disney show. Have you ever seen her act on the Disney show?
Well,
I mean, like when I say she literally plays like an idiot, she plays an idiot. Like that was her show. Like what? Okay. Like just look up Ariana Grande on Disney Channel and you'll see what I'm talking about. And so to me, it's all she always just has given off this vibe that she's just tell me what to do and I will do it. I'm not really here, and I feel like that with the singing. She's a great singer, you know, can't take that away from her. But even with the singing, like when I listen to like a Taylor Swift song, I can tell that Taylor Swift like meant that shit. Like she really gave it everything she's got. And that's because Taylor Swift actually wrote her music and cares about the musical aspect of it. Like she cares about pushing herself and doing different things. And when you have that like creative urge as an artist, you can hear that come through on your instrument, you know? But when you are literally just this kind of corporate, I don't know what you'd say, like a mask, you know? Like she's just this sort of product that is meant to sell records for Max Martin and her music label. It's like, okay, you're not really in charge of anything. You're not really doing anything. You don't have any agency in this. You're just doing what they tell you to do, and that's what you've always done. It's like, okay, well, I don't think you're going to have much passion when you sing the songs, and you're not really going to mean it. Maybe she does to a degree. I mean, but I don't know. I again, so I feel really weird saying it, but also she does have a great voice, and her style of singing and the way that she sings is pretty like I really don't want to say iconic. I would say popular. Like I don't know.
I mean, maybe iconic's not the right word, but like if you hear Ariana's song, like you know it's her.
Yes, I would. I will agree with that because it'll sound like a dead fish. Okay, all right, I'm joking. No,
I
it's
don't.
just here's the thing.
I
Like
don't.
when you listen to Billie Eilish, that's iconic. Like Billie Eilish is one of the most iconic singers from the past like 10, 20 years, in my opinion.
But is it
Totally.
because of her singing?
Yeah, yes. The way that she sang and the way that she approached doing vocals on pop songs changed the game. Every girl is trying to mimic that, or at least was trying to mimic that for the past like 5 years. What she did on songs like "Bad Guy" and "You Should See
I
Me in a Crown."
I agree. Billy changed the game. I don't know if we can call her iconic yet. I don't think she's had longevity.
Fair enough, fair enough. But I also don't know if I would call Ariana Grande's voice iconic.
I
Um,
think. I mean, I think that's fair.
but yeah, here's the thing. Regardless, she's a fantastic singer.
Yeah, she got the skills to pay the bills.
Yeah, like she really does. And so uh, to kind of get back to your original point, it is hard to do this style of singing. It is hard to make it sound like I know we say talk singing, but it's not really. And to do something like that is actually very difficult. In fact, I'm going to even give her a compliment. Like to make it sound like it's just talk singing is actually an impressive thing on her end because she's making it sound effortless enough that it sounds like she's just kind of speaking to us, you know, and or speaking to us melodically. So yeah, definitely an incredibly impressive singer. Um, I think that the melodies in general are just kind of yeah, whatever. But and the lyrics are garbage, but can't take that away from her. So, but she does do that on a lot of songs too. I think you make a good point there. She does do this on a lot of songs. So
Cool. Cool. Continue.
okay, I think that's everything that I have for the verse. So let's get into the pre-chorus. Uh, I think the pre-chorus is the best part of this song. Um, I think the melody is cool. I think that the way that it goes from being so the verse, like I said, it had all these little background sounds and ambiance and like things that made it sound very full and flowy. The pre-chorus actually has a really nice dynamic shift, switching to something very open and like or empty. So she goes into so all the music kind of simplifies, gets very empty sounding, and she goes into this cool melody. I actually think this is a pretty solid melody where it's like something about him is made for somebody like me, baby, come over. Like that's actually cool. That's a cool little melody. Like, da, 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 da. Like I like that. So yeah, and then also when they did a good job, like when she finishes the "made for somebody" or something about him is made for somebody body like me. Right when she does that "me" and there's that quick pause between saying "like me" and then "baby
Mhm.
come over," that's when they throw that bass line in da 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 dum or da 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 dum, and that's a really cool spot to put it in. It fills that space up really great. It contrasts with the emptiness of that part because when the part starts, it gets very like slowed down and empty, and then to have that kind of aggressive like da 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 dum is super cool. Yeah. What do you think of the pre-chorus?
Um, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I think that the melody is great. I think it's probably the best part of the song,
Mm-hmm.
or like the part to me at least that I don't know if I want to say it stands out the most to me. Um, I
Yeah.
don't know that I don't know that I want to take that stance, but I like it's a nice change of pace compared to the rest of the song. How about that?
Yeah, I think it's actually like a well, it's a it's a dynamic
Yeah.
change, you
Yes.
know? And it's funny, like if you compare it to Hell's Bells, right? Where the verse is kind of like laid back and then the pre-chorus starts to amp up and then they drop down into the chorus. This song almost takes like the opposite approach where it's like you have a full verse but then the energy comes down in the pre-chorus so that way it can pick back up in the chorus. So that's something you could do. You could have a soft pre-chorus leading into a heavy chorus, um, or heavier chorus, and so yeah, it's an interesting little dynamic change, and especially when like a lot of pop songs they do the same damn thing over and over again. At least on this one, there is that little change, and uh, it's definitely a unique sounding section. So yeah. I think that's let's see. I think that's everything I had for it though. Lots of soft merit. Yeah, cool. Uh, yeah. That's everything I got for the pre-chorus. Unless you got anything else you want to jump into the chorus.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like the chorus is really where, like, in my opinion, the theme or the I guess tone of the song is set finally,
Yes.
uh,
Okay.
which is
Before.
very.
All right. What were you saying?
The same like with the chorus. I feel like very different from the other songs we've talked about. Is like I finally feel like we're now, our chorus is like 49 minutes, so almost the whole minute, 49 minutes, 49 seconds into
Hmm.
the song. So almost a whole minute, at least in my opinion, before a tone or a theme
Hmm.
is set. Um,
Hmm.
and really, I mean, I think the chorus is catchy. I think it does what a chorus is supposed to do. Um, I feel like, to me at least, you had said that you didn't really feel like there was a theme, but I just kind of feel like it's like some bad bitch energy is the vibe I get. Like I feel like this song. First of all, I feel like the song needs like a dance music video. Like I don't know why. Like the music video is neat. It's very Batman esque,
Yeah.
but I feel like this is a song that like there should be a dance to. And I feel like if you're out to brunch and you've had a mimosa or two or three, and then you listen to the song, like it might hit a little better.
So yes. If I had to say like okay, there's a theme or a tone, I feel like it's this kind of sense of euphoria to a degree. Like it's this, you know, if you look at the lyrics, that the boy is mine. I can't wait to try him. Uh, let's get intertwined. The stars they aligned. That boy is mine. Watch me take my time. I can't believe my mind. The boy is divine. The boy is mine. It's like okay, again, there is nothing deep or subtle happening here. She is praising her man. She loves the shit out of her dude. Um, I think now might be a decent time to talk about the, the background behind this album. Actually,
Well, so I don't know that so much that she's praising her man as much as it is like she's on the hunt, she's on the prowl, and she's gonna make this man hers versus praising her man. Like those are very different things.
well, so I think it can be taken in multiple ways, and actually, like that's actually something I'll talk about in a second. But well, no, here I'll talk about it now. And this is something that a lot of these pop songs do, and this is one of the reasons why I don't really like them, is because a lot of times they leave the lyrics purposefully open ended to make them as widely interpretable as possible by as many people. And so
Hmm.
this chorus can be taken many different ways. This could be a girl sitting alone in her room, Facebook stalking a dude and that she has a crush on and like thinking how she's going to get him to like her.
Hmm.
This could be a girl, you know, she could put this on after, after sleeping with her dude, and he's sitting in bed, and she's just looking at him, and she's just like, ooh, that boy is mine. Like, I got him. So it can be like, you can think about it like, I've got him, or I'm going to get him.
I feel like it's pretty straightforward here. I don't think there's much open to interpretation. And maybe I feel like that after only watching the music video, because the music video makes it, I feel like it picks a stance.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, like, I don't. So in that sense, okay, it's about a single girl who likes a guy, but
Yeah.
I absolutely think a girl in a relationship could jam to this song too, and think about the guy that she's already got.
Yeah. I mean, I think that,
In
yeah.
fact, I think if I'm looking at these lyrics, the only one that would even kind of keep the girls in relationships from like wanting it or relating to it is the "I can't wait to try 'em" line. That's the only line that's kind of specifically about like, and that even then, you know, maybe you're not trying him for the first time. Maybe you can't wait to
Right. Well,
try
that's
him
kind of
again.
like, yeah.
Here's the thing. We're maybe diving into it more intellectually than even, well, no, the writers probably spent time on it, but I think that this is the type of song, you're a girl, you're playing this in the club, you're drunk with your guy, uh, and you're grinding on him, and you're just like, ooh, that boy is mine, and you're thinking about your guy. I think that, I'm not saying that that's the primary context. I definitely think that this song was made for like a new couple or a girl who is trying to, get a guy.
Yeah. Okay.
But I
I can get
like I
behind that.
yeah,
I
let
mean,
me
I
be
don't think
clear.
what you're saying is absurd. Like, I just don't know that I can. Like, I see what you're saying, but
I
to me,
yeah, I don't think that, I think that what you're saying is the primary, like, I don't know what you call it, the primary like
intentions.
interpretation,
Yeah.
intention. But again, they leave this open ended. Like, let me put it this way: a girl at the club who is drunk, grinding on a dude, like grinding on her boyfriend, and this song comes on, she's not going to be like, "Oh, I already have this guy, so this song doesn't relate to me." Like, she's not
Right.
going to say that.
Yeah.
She's going to be like, "Ooh, I got my man." Like, so that's what I mean, is they leave this kind of open ended. It's not really, you know, it's relatable in a lot of different ways. You can ignore one or two lines and just interpret it your own way, however you want to. And I think that's what a lot of people do when
Yeah.
they're listening to it, because this song is not meant to be thought through very deeply. It's meant to just be fun at the club or whatever, and you just put it on and whatever. Like, that's kind of what it's meant to be. Um, so yeah, fun. Dang, Aubrey, our first disagreement.
Recorded.
Yeah, very true. Um, anyway, yeah, so the music here is interesting because they start doing a lot of little things again, but they're kind of random, and all of them sound nice and they work fine, but it's none of them are really memorable. Like, I couldn't tell you any of the background music. I've listened to the song, probably 10, 15 times now, and I'm like, I don't have any of it memorized. It's just little noises, you
Mm.
know, it's just whatever happening in the background, but it's meant to at least fill up the space, to contrast the pre-chorus. Um, so let's see. We talked about the lyrics. We talked about anyway. That's all that's going on with the music. I think the music is pretty generic. It's just, ambient stuff over the, behind the vocals, uh, but the melody of the verse, or the melody of the chorus, because this is the melody that made me realize it was Max Martin. Um, so I guess maybe let me try to explain like the specific things. I'll try to explain as much as possible. Uh, Essentially, Max Martin is really good at creating these melodies that are kind of short and have good amounts of space in them, and then have like these like small but impactful melodic changes. So for example, in this case, that boy is mine. Like that's a step down or a half step down. Da-na. It might be more than that, I don't know. But regardless, it's just you go down in pitch in the middle of the mine word. So it's that boy is mine. I can't wait to try him. Let's get intertwined. The stars they aligned. And so something about that melody, like so maybe it'd help if I list like another Max Martin melody, which is I believe it's "You Drive Me Crazy." I think that's it, or is it "Hit Me Baby One More Time"? I think that's it. Hit me. I want to say it's that. In fact, I think "Hit Me Baby One." Yeah, it was. "Hit Me Baby One More Time" was actually the song that made Max Martin famous. So you drive me crazy. I just can't see. I'm so excited. You know, so again, like da 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 da, and then you drive me crazy. So that da da, like that little pitch change again. It's just it's like a staple for him. It's something that he does. And there's other songs, but something about those specific intonations and the rhythm and just like I can't wait to try him. I'm like, that reeks of Max Martin. That reeks of Max Martin. I think the other chorus is "We Can't Be Friends" off of this album. We can't be friends. I don't like to just pretend. You know, like that. Like that is just straight up Max Martin. So anyway, I at least wanted to talk about it. The melody is interesting. That little like mine, that's like the catcher, I guess, the catch, like the hook. Um and there it is a clever little like data pitch change, but yeah. That's it. I don't think I've got anything else really to go off of, but yeah, that it's just very much a Max Martin thing to do. Have that space in there, have the hook, have this like little pitch change, data, and yeah, that's it. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think you pretty much covered all the things.
Yeah. Um. Okay. Actually, I do have one topic to talk about for the chorus. Catchy does not equal good. That is the topic I wrote down. Um. Yeah, I think that this is another thing where when we're talking about like artistic quality, there's this perception that just because a song can get stuck in your head or it can be catchy and it sounds pleasing to the ear, that it's like quote unquote good. And I don't think that's true at all. In fact, I think you need to be very careful when it comes to like catchy music because it can be like candy. Like it sounds pleasing, it's cool, you know, oh, it's catchy, but it ends up being like it's ultimately kind of unfulfilling, I think, um, if it's just catchy. Now, it can be catchy and good, but just because something is catchy doesn't necessarily make it good. I think that's just the main point I wanted to make.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times people tend to remember the bad versus the good, which I think music might actually be the exception to that rule in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
I think it's funny because like if something's just bad on its own, I think people usually just don't care and ignore it. But if it's something that was good and now is bad, that typically catches people's attention because they're like, well, wait, what changed? What happened? And I think that's just like a human thing. Like it just piques our curiosity of like, well, it was good, but now it's not, you know? Like for example, Katy Perry's got a new song coming out. And regardless of what you think about Katy Perry, you know, I actually kind of liked her back in the day. I thought she had some cool songs. I don't know if you've heard the snippet of the new song, but it sounds pretty bad. And it's like, what is going on here? You know, how did Katy Perry get so bad? Um, I think that interests people versus if some random pop star comes out and they just make a bad song, everyone's like, all right, well, that's just not good. Whatever.
yeah, yeah, that's fair.
So there's something about like the decline that really appeals to people. Um, and so yeah, I think when all you do is make catchy music and you don't know how to make something that has like deeper meaning or artistic integrity, uh, it's very. I think it's actually very difficult to stay relevant and to keep the career moving forward. Um, so yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I guess maybe for songwriters, the point I'd make is if you're going to write something, you can make it catchy, but you can actually give it purpose and meaning, and like why is this part catchy, and like what is the message of this part, and what are you doing musically to enhance that message? You know, Hell's Bells is catchy, uh, catchy song, um, and it's good. Like it's a cool song. It's actually a really unique chorus uh, about rocking out. Hell's Bells. Houdini's catchy too, and it's about him pulling a trick on his, with his career, which we will find out when he releases that album. So yeah. Anyway, all right, cool. I think that's all I got to say about that. You got anything else?
Nope.
Cool beans. Okay, let's get into the second verse. So I'm just going to read the lyrics out. Musically, we've pretty much heard everything in the song other than the bridge, so we're just going to focus on the lyrics. The second verse goes, please know this ain't what I planned for. Probably wouldn't bet a dime or my life on. There's got to be a reason why. My girls, they always come through in a sticky situation. Say it's fine. Happens all the time. So, yeah, we were going to talk about like the theme or the tone or like, yeah, the theme and tone of the song. This song just doesn't, it just goes all over the place. And I think this song is meant to just be a feel good, don't think about it, just have fun type of thing. And so it's like, okay, yeah, girls at the club, my girls, like now we're just talking about her girls randomly. They come through in a sticky situation, say it's fine. What does that have to do with anything? It doesn't have anything to do with anything. I mean, you can find a meaning. I'm sure like somebody can sit there and go like, well, actually, when you're dealing with a boy, your girls help you out. It's like, okay, cool. Like, what, sure. How is this adding to it at all? And to me, it's not. So.
I think it adds to it.
Really? Okay. Let's hear it.
Sorry, I'm trying to scroll and find where it's at. I think it's just more so. It's just I think more adding to like that bad bitch energy that I feel like Ariana carries through a lot of her music. Like it's nothing. I'm not saying it's. I don't feel like it's totally random. I feel like it's intentional, and that like it's kind of just reinforcing the whole like me and my crew kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's totally meaningless. Like, could it have been left out, and could she have said something else or just repeated um, what she said earlier? Yeah, but I think this is an attempt to still kind of add like some girl gang energy.
Well, so that's the thing, though. Like, I think what you just said is kind of interesting because it's like, well, you could just take it out and it wouldn't change anything in the song. It's
right.
Like, what? Like, and this song isn't about your girls. Like, it's about your boy. It's actually about your boy. You know? I'm not saying you can't talk about multiple things. But yeah, I like it's just kind of like, all right, like let me put it this way: she is saying words, and words do have meanings. That is the point of words. So it's not like nothing is happening here, but just because the words that she's saying intrinsically have meaning, I don't think that means that it's just like, oh yes, this is this is an artistic pillar of the song. It's revealing more of the story, and like you compare it to like Eminem, right? The Houdini song, where he goes back and forth between a whole lot of different topics, right? but they all kind of build on this theme of his past self reflecting on, or his present self reflecting on what his past self would think of the world today, right? And so every line builds towards that theme. Whereas this, it's like, okay, the theme is that you want a boy or you like a boy. I mean, you can interpret it many different ways. And it's like, well, by the way, my girls, they're great too. It's like, okay, I don't see the point.
I just think it adds an element of. So I see your point in the sense of like it's definitely necessary. It doesn't need to be there to be fine. I don't know. I just feel like it adds like another aspect to it. Nothing crazy, but just like a little something to me
So,
personally.
no, I get you. And I think like the thing with that is like, it does. Here's what I'll say. It does add a different flavor to the song. And it's like, okay, we're going to talk about something separate instead of just repeating the same things over and over again. You know, because how many times can you say that you just love your boy or whatever, like you love your man or you want a man or you're trying to get this guy? Like how many different ways and phrases can you say? But it's like, again, it's this sort of thing where it's like, is this anything? Is there substance here at all? And just because she's discussing this different topic, and yes, it is a different topic from the rest of the song, and like, if you imagine the context of it, where it's like, yeah, you're a girl at the club and you're dancing to this song, and like, say you're grinding on your man for the chorus, but then like you see your girls when the verse comes on, you're like, my girls, and then you get to take 5 seconds to talk about your girls, and it's like, that's cool, nothing, fine. But when we're talking about like again, I want to, and maybe I have another topic about like art and like what is art and what is the point of art. That is actually another topic I put here, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit now. It's like, is this providing like a deeper understanding of yourself? Is this doing anything for you? Like, is this fulfilling you in a way? And it's like, I mean, you can say, oh, I love my girls. It's like, okay, cool. I mean, do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's all just kind of surface level. Okay, maybe this is a better way to put it. Think about the opportunity cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where like the opportunity cost is, what could she have done here that could have added to the song? So like, if we go back to the first verse, right? We're talking about like, how can it be you and me might be meant to be? I can't unsee it, but I don't want to cause a scene. I'm usually so unproblematic, so independent. So tell me why. So okay, in this first verse, we were kind of just like, whatever, it's fine. But the general like gist of this verse is, she says like, I can't unsee it. So she is now seeing a guy. Maybe she didn't see it before, but now she's thinking that that guy is somebody that she wants and that she could see herself with, right?
Right.
So I think we could say like, all right, fine. That's kind of the gist of the first verse. And then the chorus is like reinforcing that I'm going to make him mine type of thing. The second verse could have said something like, why doesn't he like me? Or why am I chasing him? Or do you see what I mean? Like, continue down that theme. Like, what's the second step of that? Like, does he like me back?
I just think that, to me, this adds that like kind of element of like it's really just compounding in the sense of that she and now also her girls are gonna do whatever it takes to make this man hers. Like, she has a crew if necessary. Yeah, I also feel like Ariana Grande likes to like, I mean, a lot of her songs, it's all about like not just her but her squad. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe that's another like Ariana Grande move of, she always has this weird talky singy intros and she always likes to talk about her squad somehow.
Right. And I mean, I guess that's like, again, I'm not like, it feels weird to talk about a song like this and like, here's how it could be better. It's like, I mean, it's all just kind of bleh. but like I still think it's when I think about the things that maybe let me put this another way. Let me phrase this another way and go back to what I was saying earlier about like this song has smoothed over any potential tension or risk
Yeah,
or anything, and
for sure.
this is a good example of that. In fact, the second verse of a song is usually where like the first verse is usually where you introduce like the situation or the story or the topic. The chorus is kind of like the point of the song, like what are we talking about here and what is the main conflict. The second the second verse, and it's kind of like the second act of a movie or a story, right? The second verse is usually the challenge. You know, that's usually where like there is tension, there is a challenge, and like you even again go back to the to Houdini, right? Like that's the one where he's like, I will hit an 8-year-old in the face with a participation trophy. Like that's kind of like, all right, I'm frustrated about the state of the world right now. Like the first verse, yeah, we're back. I'm back. I'm glad to be back. And now he's like, you know, what's going on here? You're about to turn into some Girl Scouts. Like what are y'all doing? You know? And that's kind of the point of that verse. And then the third verse is where he finally just says like, F you, F Dre, F Jimmy, F me, F my kids, you know, all that. And that's kind of the climax of the song. And so I'm just saying there was an opportunity here to introduce and like expound on the tension of like I like a guy, but he's not mine yet, potentially. What are the situations that come up with that? And instead of maybe introducing that, it's just immediately like, oh, I'm in a sticky situation. My girls are there to help me out. Like, well, what is the sticky situation? What are they helping you out with? And I again, it's like we're just gonna smooth it all over. It's all feel good. Don't think. Don't worry. Everything's okay. You know. And so maybe I should be clear on this. I totally get what you're saying. I get what you're saying about like the bad bitch energy and like that is actually the point. Like that is why they put it in there because they want the girls to feel good and it's like yeah, I got my girls and like I'm got my squad like 100%. I'm just saying from like an artistic perspective as a songwriter, it leaves the song shallow. Like we could have had tension. We said nah, it's all good. No tension. No risk. So
I can get behind that. I wouldn't say that there's no tension. I do think there's no risk, but I think it's more of if this doesn't pan out how I think it will, like we're gonna bump it up a notch.
I could see that. I'll give you that one because yeah, it's like, and again, okay, if we're Max Martin and we're making this song that's supposed to just be nothing but feel good, it's like okay, you know, even just the implication that there is a sticky situation could be enough tension for the song that we want to make. You know, I mean, I guess I could see that. I just think it's, eh. But I get it. I'll give you that one. That is at least an acknowledgement of tension.
Yeah,
So it's not real tension in the song, but they're acknowledging the potential for
yeah,
tension. Sorry, that got me. That's funny.
yeah.
Um
No. I mean, I'm on board.
okay, yeah, no, that's anyway. Um interesting stuff. Okay, pre-chorus unless you got anything else.
No. I think this might be the shortest song we covered, but it might be our longest episode.
Yeah, I know. Well, we didn't get into the song until 40 minutes in.
Yeah.
It's okay. I think it's about to go quick because I don't think there's any change in the pre-chorus.
No, yeah, it's a lot of rinsing and repeating for the most part.
Yeah, no change. Chorus is the same, both the second and the third. So the only unique section we have left to talk about is the bridge. Um, what do you think of the bridge?
Uh, where is our lyrics here with the bridge? Hold on.
It's this right here.
Yep. Bum, 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 bum. I mean,
Here, I'll read out the lyrics and then you think about it for a second, for the listener. So the lyrics of the bridge
Yeah.
are, this is after the second chorus, so it's like, I can't believe my mind, the boy is divine, that boy is. And then she says, and I know it's simply meant to be, and I take full accountability for all these, it's actually supposed to be tears. I take full accountability for all these tears. Promise you I'm not usually like this. Shit, it's like news to me, but I can't ignore my heart. The boy is mine. And then she starts the next chorus. This little next.
So I feel like this to me is kind of like I feel like I'm missing a piece of the puzzle unless I've been keeping up with the Ariana Grande latest and greatest news, which I don't do.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I just don't know enough about her, I guess, quote unquote personal life and any boy dramas and its specifics.
Yeah, so I do, and I'm just gonna spoil it for you. This bridge has nothing to do with any of it. It makes no sense.
Okay. And
Yeah.
that then I mean to me it's just kind of like okay cool it's there. It doesn't like
Yeah. This so this is probably my least favorite part of the song. Um because kind of like what I talked about earlier, how like the lyrics are purposefully open-ended and meant to be like meaningless. Oh, are you changing that?
I am, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you got it. I'll let you do it. So yeah, these lyrics mean nothing. I know it's simply meant to be like that kind of has to do with the theme. Then it's like I take full accountability for all these tears. What tears?
Right.
What?
Well,
Promise you
how did we get to tears? From what I can tell, there's no reason that we should have tears.
well, and you know what's funny? Here's the thing, right? Maybe if in the second verse we had
If they talked
what
about the tension,
yes, actually though, that it's funny because it's like okay, the bridge or the interlude of the song is usually like the climax of the song. And so you go back to like Houdini, right? Where he kept it very simple, but the bridge is sometimes I wonder what the old me'd say if he could see the way shit is today. He'd probably say that everything is gay, you know? It's like that's it. That's the point of the song right there. Very clear, makes sense, got it. Um and that's usually how it goes with most songs. Like that's where you understand what this song is really about, and it's the sort of thematic climax of the song. And it's the same in stories too. You don't reach the end, and the end is the climax. Now the climax usually happens like at the beginning or in the middle of the third act, and then there's the conclusion when everything, like all of the tension of the story, is done. And in a song, that's the third chorus. So this really is meant to be the climax of the tension and like everything. But they didn't establish any tension. So they just have to make it
right?
up. So it's like, I take full accountability for all these tears. What tears? What are you crying about?
Maybe that's why it's news to her too. She didn't know. She too was left out of the message.
like, that's the thing. It's like, what?
They
It's
said cry, so here I am crying.
exactly. Yeah, it's just, I mean, and again, I guess maybe I should say, like, it is purposefully made ambiguous so that people can relate to it in different ways. So like a girl could be thinking like, "Oh, I cried when I professed my love to a guy and I had to apologize to him because I just loved him so much." That's what she's talking about. Or it could be like, "Oh, the guy that you like is breaking up with you and you feel like he shouldn't be, but he doesn't really like you." Like, you know, I know it's simply meant to be, but I take accountability for these tears. I promise you I'm not like this. It's like news to me, but I can't ignore my heart. It's like it's just generic. It's this very bland statement of, words that mean things in their own way, and you can just take those words and think, "Oh, I cried one time." Like so it's yeah. I do not like this part, and I think back when I said like this song doesn't really have much of a theme, I think this is a good example of it, where it's like again going back to Houdini, that's the theme. There is a theme throughout the song, and the climax very clearly like states and resolves that theme. The song doesn't really have much of a theme. It's kind of all over the place. And then in the one spot where they could have mentioned a theme or like expounded on the issues of the song or like a conflict, a potential conflict, my girl's got me. It's like, all right. So, yeah. And the melody's weird. We were talking about the lyrics. The melody's weird, and the lyrics don't rhyme. And I'm not saying like lyrics have to rhyme, but I don't know. If you go and listen to it, I think the melody's super forgettable. I'm a musician and I can't remember it. I've listened to it 15 times, and I take full accountability for all these tears. From I don't know. I don't know what it is. I can't sing it. It's just this weird mishmash of stuff. Yeah. So I guess maybe to make it more official, I think the lyrics are meaningless. The melody is forgettable. The section does not add to anything. It doesn't resolve anything. It's just that they have to make their stock pop song, and it has to have a bridge where she has to say something in a melody. So
I think the whole album's. I will never probably listen to this album ever again.
yeah. So that's pretty much it. That's the whole song. Yeah. I just think it's unfulfilling as hell. Just and so again, I mean, I think it's funny because we can compliment stuff and then we'll criticize stuff, but ultimately it's just kind of there.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk real quick about the remix?
I mean, I feel like I've said it. Everything I have to say about the remixes and the alternate versions is I just think they're better. I think an album that largely as a whole sounds kind of the same and is very not rememberable or is very forgettable. Like the remixes are like, dang, I wish she would have popped a couple of them on the album to break up the drone of the album, if that makes sense.
Yes, totally. And so I actually wanted to bring up the remix for this song real quick, just on the interlude, because, well, first off, the song, the original "That Boy Is Mine," that this song is based off of, the song was actually about telling another girl to stay away from her man, which is a pretty common like theme in like 90s R&B, but that's at least like a conflict. There's something there. There's a story. Like, why is this girl like your man? Like, what is she doing to try to get your man? Like, there's just a topic to talk about there. And so when you say that boy is mine, like, stay away from him, it's like there's something to be said. And so it's funny because in the remix, when the two original singers come in, so the remix has the two original singers as features, they redid the bridge and they actually added in that plot line very briefly where she's like, so stay away from my man because that boy is mine. And it's like, so you say like, okay, that's better. Like, that's why, is because they actually, and they have much more energy when they sing than Ariana Grande, in my opinion. But yeah, they sound better with more energy, and then they actually introduce some element of tension or story or plot or something that can pique your brain, you know. So that's why, like, I think just based on this song, that's why that's better. So yeah, go listen to the remixes, and then go listen to more 90s R&B. As far as did you have anything else with that?
No, I mean, I think pretty much hit everything.
Yeah. So, all right. So then, I can't get I wanted to pull up the Rolling Stone, but I can't get it to. It's blocked behind a paywall, which I think is just so wild that Rolling Stone thinks that they are worth a paywall.
I mean, we know the gist of it, or you do. I didn't read it, but the gist is that Rolling Stones gave it a 10 out of 10, and it's been. I looked at a couple other like music things that reviews. It's highly rated across the board, like 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, 4.7s. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and say, because you'll have a little bit more of a tangent on this than I will.
Yeah.
I don't think in all of my years, in hours and minutes of listening to music, I have ever heard a 10 out of 10 album.
Ooh. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Um, I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying that I have not heard one. And I'm gonna say that I don't even think that any of Vince Sevenfold's albums are 10 out of 10. I just don't
Hmm.
know that a perfect album does truly exist. Um,
Interesting.
because I just
Um.
feel like there's always somebody or something that's gonna be like, oh, like, could have, should have, would have done this thing here. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um, and like not coming at from like a popular perspective or like successful perspective, just from like a pure quality
Hmm.
perspective of like I really don't think I've ever heard like a true 10 out of 10 album. I don't think 10 out of 10 exists in anything, like regardless of what you're rating or reviewing. Okay, I should say that too. I would never give a
Hmm.
perfect. I always think there's room for improvement.
Dang,
In
Aubrey.
anything. My mom says my mom gets mad at me. She's like, why is it you can't just be content? And I'm like, because when you're content, you stop growing, and I don't want to do that.
So interesting. That is an interesting topic. Uh, why is my shit not working? Um, okay, so that is not where I was expecting the conversation to go, but that is very interesting. Um, let me, well, here, actually, let's talk about that. So I, that's it. Okay, so I've heard this perspective before, and I think it's interesting, and I somewhat disagree. Um, I think that a 10 out of 10 can exist. And I'm going to try to maybe explain my thought process behind it. I think it's extraordinarily rare. But here's my mentality. And it's actually, so sorry, we just had some audio trouble. But I do think that a 10 out of 10 can exist. I think it's very rare and it's extraordinarily hard to do, especially when it comes to art. But one of my big things, and it's kind of the basis for the show, is that you can objectively analyze art and specifically music. Like you can look at the elements of the song and all the elements, the melodies, the drums, the lyrics, the mix, and you can take to some extent an objective measure of quality to that. Um, Now, when it comes to art, though, there's this interesting aspect of it. It's not like a math problem where always a solution. There's infinite possibilities, and that's why there's so much different music, so many different types of music. Um, when it comes to thinking about like a 10 out of 10 album, I think that you know I think that if you're looking at it from the perspective of like, oh, does this album is this album everything that I want in an album? I think you're gonna have a hard time finding like a 10 out of 10, right? Because no piece of art can do that, and there's always like you said, there's always room for improvement. There's always other things that you can do. But if you look at like, I think that there is a way, and I'm not, and it's actually kind of part of the show because I wanted to continue to pursue this like theory of mine that you can analyze things, you can analyze music and art, and like figure something out, like figure out a way to like, I don't know, analyze it. Anyway, so the idea is like, I think there is a way to take a piece of art and look at it for what it is and measure its quality as a whole and say like, yes, like a 10 out of 10 doesn't mean that it is the pinnacle of everything or that it accomplishes everything, but it can be like, look, on every metric that this album is, like the purpose of the album, the meaning of the album, the themes of the album, the lyrical content, the mix, the musical production, the instrumentation, all of it, I think that you can get to a point where it's like, yes, this album is exactly what it is, what it needs to be. It meets all of these metrics of quality. I feel comfortable giving it like a perfect score. It doesn't mean that other albums don't do certain things better than that album, but I I, I think that that can exist. Now I don't know if I could name a 10 out of 10 album like right off the top of my head, but um but yeah, I think that's definitely like an interesting discussion um to be had. Trying to think if there was anything else. I don't know. You got it. What do you think of that?
Um, I mean, I think everything you said was fair from a perspective of kind of assessing something based off of the criteria you listed. I still just don't think a 10 exists.
Dang.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um.
get what you're saying. I like assessing it in the context of what, and I think everything you said is correct and true.
Mhm.
Um, I just don't know that a 10 exists.
I think it's like okay. So then here's maybe all right. You know what, Aubrey? I'm gonna take you. I'm gonna push you on it a little bit. Okay. So then there's a whole bunch of nines though, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So
Nine
then
point nines, 9.8 even.
so okay. So then that's the thing though. It's like if there's no such thing as a 10, but the best albums in the world all receive nines, then by your standard of metric, the best album is a nine. So the high,
9.9.
well, so the highest score is a nine. Well, I mean, yeah, but it's not a 10. I mean,
But yes, yeah.
if you have to round, well, okay, let's say you have to round to an absolute number or a
Right,
what's it called? A non-decimal number. I can't remember the name of it.
right.
So it's like,
That's
okay,
okay.
would you then give some albums a 10 if you couldn't, if you had to choose between 9 or 10?
Um, my immediate gut answer is no.
Dang, really?
Yeah,
I would. I would. I think that there's albums that I would give a 10. If we're getting into the decimal places, fine. Maybe you could make an argument that there's no such thing as a 10. But if I've got an album and it's like, yeah, that's a 9.9, but I thought that that one guitar solo was a little weak on that one song, it's like I'd feel comfortable still giving that album a 10, not a
I
9.
think I think if we stopped giving people tens, maybe there'd be better music in the world.
Well, hold on though. Hold on. I think because that might be a good segue into this album real quick. But also, I think that if we never give anybody a 10, then what is the point of even having the 10,
Because
right?
somebody always wants to try and get the 10.
Well, yeah, but if you can never get it, then there's no point. And if you just know, all right, yeah, I'm never going to get
Somebody
a 10.
somebody will do it eventually.
So somebody's going to make a 10 out of 10 album for you?
Probably, maybe. I mean, I just haven't found it yet. It could exist. I just haven't found
Ye-
it.
Nah, I think so.
I'm
That's
not
where you get,
again. I'm not saying a 10 out of 10 doesn't exist.
yeah.
I'm just saying I haven't found it. But I think again, it's that desire and drive to always want to be reaching for that 10, whether it's achievable or not.
I agree with you there. I think you should always keep pushing and keep the drive up. Um, but I also think that when somebody makes something that is of the highest quality, I do think that should be recognized.
So, interesting kind of topic. I think it was me and Bailey were talking about. Me and somebody were talking about this past week because the Olympic trials are going on,
Mhm.
and how it's kind of a thing where these Olympic athletes, train their whole life for the Olympics. They get that gold medal, and then they go into a severe depression
Yes.
because that's all they've got, right? Like they've peaked, they've achieved the greatest, you know, thing
Yes.
ever theoretically.
Well, here's okay.
The,
So then,
then what?
well, here's the funny thing, right? So when it comes, this is like the primary difference between like art versus sports. But even not even really though, because let's say that person got that one gold medal, they're probably most likely going to be in extraordinarily good physical condition. They could still win other gold medals in other areas. And I think that when you're that passionate about something, it's not like you just stop. Like you're not just going to give up or like say, all right, cool, I'm not. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Yes, there is that depression, and I think it's an interesting phenomenon. But usually, the thing is like you have two choices when you're in that position, right? So imagine like, okay, you did it, you got the gold medal. Are you just going to stop running now? Are you just going to stop pole vaulting? No. Like, I mean, maybe pole vaulting because that you might reach an age limit, right? But if you truly love it and you want to pursue that and like that drive to pursue is there, you don't just stop. And it might not be in sports. You could find another like avenue to be successful at, you know? And I think when it comes to like music, that's very easy because there's so many different types of music. So you can make like this type of album. Like I think Eminem's a good example. Like he totally nailed it on like the Marshall Mathers LP, right? Like just this savage, brutal, like raunchy album, right? But still with like a little bit of maturity with like Stan. But just, songs like Kim and The Way I Am and, Amityville and all those, like it's just brutal 100% of the way. And then he said, cool, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to do something like the Eminem show, where each song is very different and has a unique style and sound to it that's very different from Marshall Mathers LP. And he actually experiments a lot on that album and tries different sounds out and nails it there too. And then you get to something like Recovery, where now he's not even really going to be savage. It's going to be more of like positive and then like actually kind of an uplifting album and message from him. And I think Recovery is one of, if not his best albums. Um, so there's these ways that you can pivot when you and be successful when you pivot, especially with art. So it's not like, oh, I nailed this one thing and it's the best it could be, and that's just the end of my journey. It's like, no, like you go do another thing or keep, honestly, in my opinion, this is why I like Eminem's newer albums, is because he keeps going and he keeps trying to improve. It's like, okay, you did this gold medal, right? You got this gold medal and you're like the fastest man in the world or like the whatever. And now you are depressed, but it's like, okay. And I guess maybe bringing it back to my original point, you can either stop, and I mean, fine, I guess. Like, if that's what you want to do, you just stop. Or you can understand that, like, that's kind of the way life is. Like, it just keeps going. And you achieve this thing, but life moves on. And you can either just stop trying to achieve anything. And a lot of people do that and they become depressed and miserable. Or you can keep pursuing greater and greater heights and keep trying to push it and keep going. Maybe you can beat your previous time. Maybe you can continue to establish yourself as the best. I think with sports specifically, it's hard because as you get older, it gets harder. But with anything outside of sports, like with any intellectual pursuit, or even like an artistic pursuit, you can keep going. Like you can keep finding new melodies and new sounds and new tones. I mean, I think, for example, like Avenged Sevenfold had a number one album with Nightmare back in 2010. Now there was a lot going on with the band at the time, but if they just quit then, we would have been robbed of some of the best work they've ever made. And I would have never expected them to make an album like Life is But a Dream, or The Stage, like an album about space and technology from the band that made A Little Piece of Heaven. Like, no, it's weird. So I think that there's this constant pursuit that you can keep going for. And if you think that like winning or achieving that 10 out of 10 is the end, is like the end all be all, or even just achieving 10 out of 10 is the end all be all, it's like, well, what are you really in it for? Are you in it for the art? Are you in it for the pursuit? Which is actually what you're saying, is that you should always keep striving. But if you got that 10 out of 10 and now you just give up, did you really care about the pursuit? Did you really care about getting better and being the best? Or did you just care about getting the 10 out of 10?
Well, I think in my example, they go hand in hand. About like, in order to get a 10 out of 10, you have to get better, right? So then the question is, let's say you achieve a 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you do it again? Like, that's your argument, basically. You know what I'm saying?
So yes, but I'm more saying that the type of person who would get the 10 out of 10 doesn't just stop after they get the 10 out of 10. They want to keep going.
Maybe. I would say in general, yes, you're probably correct.
Mhm.
Um,
And
and
I think you're
I
sorry.
think it's hard because we're comparing like music to athletics, where music is limitless, you
Mhm.
know. But odds are, if you're the best runner in the world, you can't be the best swimmer. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, definitely. And
Um,
it's funny, we talked about that a little bit in the first episode. Like there is something, you know, I've always found it to be quite sad, like football players, right? There's just something about like you only get this very, very limited time to do that thing. And then
yeah,
it's just like, it's just gone. You're just gone.
yeah,
It's done. There's a point where you will never step on a football field as a player again, you know? And
yeah,
I'm grateful that I chose guitar as my thing because I can always play guitar. Like,
right. As long as you have limbs
exactly.
or aren't paralyzed or
I
something.
I literally think about that sometimes. Like, what if I lost a finger? Like, I would be so miserable. Like, I would be.
Yeah, you can lose a finger. You just can't lose, like a
Yeah,
hand.
yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. It's like there's just, but regardless, like sports is a whole separate thing. Like it's there's
Yeah,
something to be said about like not being able to do the thing you love, and I mean, I guess that's where you become a coach and stuff. But then you get some coaches who are trying to relive their glory days and all
right,
that.
right.
But regardless, I think that the people who want to succeed, you know what's funny though? I think a lot of people who do sports and are successful at sports then enjoy going into other things and trying to be successful at those. Like this might be a not so great example, but like The Rock. Like, I know like that's a weird example because like
No,
I
what
don't
do you
know if
mean? He's always just acted. He's never done anything else.
you know what? You're right. He's always been an actor. Well,
Just to clarify, I do not feel that way about wrestling, but I had to make the joke for anybody who might be offended by that.
right. Yeah, like the Rock though, he's kind of interesting because it's like the dude became like the biggest dude. Actually, you know what? You know who's a better example? Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like the dude became the biggest, like he won the Mr. Universe award or whatever. He was like the biggest, most fit man like in existence, period. Like it was crazy, right? And
Yeah,
then he said, "Cool, I'm gonna go do movies." And then he did like the Terminator movies, and he quite literally became one of the biggest movie stars of all time. I mean, just from Terminator
yeah,
2 alone. And then he was like, "Cool, I'm gonna go be the governor now." And
yeah.
so it's like
He is the
that's
10 out of 10 human.
he is the 10 out of 10. Thank God he didn't start a metal band. Him and Metallica, they would have gone. No, maybe he should have started a metal band,
I was going to say, maybe that's his next phase of life.
right? Well, what's funny? James Hetfield had that. He had that decision to make at one point where he had to choose between either uh, joining the football team and playing football, but he'd have to cut his long hair, or doing a metal band and being in a metal band with long hair, and he chose the metal band.
Yeah.
And so it's like, anyway, that's just a random fact, but yeah, I don't know. I think that there is such a thing. There is like I don't know if I'd give Life is But a Dream a 10 out of 10, but I would give the stage a 10 out of 10.
See, so if I had to, maybe that's what we should try and come up with for next week, is
Mhm.
just try and come up with the closest 10 or a 10 out of 10 album. And I'm
Okay.
not saying that's what an episode has to be about next week, but just like let's put
Mhm.
some thought into it.
Well, I was actually thinking for next week, I love how we just do not give a shit about this Ariana Grande album.
Yeah, I mean, like I will never listen to it ever again.
Yeah, God, is just,
I will
there's just
forget about
nothing.
it in a week or two
It's so boring.
if it takes
There's
that
not.
long.
Anyway, okay, I was enjoying what we were talking about more. So I was thinking, since up to this point we've kind of done like fun songs, and like this song is kind of a bad song in my opinion, or just a bland song. I was thinking
Yeah.
next week we could do something a little more artistic that like is high
Well,
quality.
so I think two. I kind of had another thought of what if we picked a song that an artist objectively thinks is also bad that they released.
That we think is actually a good song,
I mean, we could do that as well.
or
Funnily enough, so you said since you said that, I was reading an article before we started recording today about Medicine by Bring Me the Horizon, and
Mhm.
Ollie was apparently recently quoted saying he's like, I think that song's shit too. Like I don't know, like what to tell you guys, but everybody wanted us to play it live. Um, but
Interesting.
I think Bring Me the Horizons is one of those bands too, where like you have kind of like what we talked about earlier with the Vince Unfold. You have the people that love everything they put out, and the people that hate everything they've put out since like I don't know Suicide
Yeah,
Season.
I think that'd be interesting to talk about because I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Bring Me the Horizon fan. I've always been
I love Bring Me the Horizon.
I have actually always been kind of surprised at how popular they are because I personally don't get it. I've listened to a lot of their stuff and I don't know, it's just never done anything for me. I think it's pretty like I don't know. I'm not like I acknowledge I get other people love them and I'm not even saying they're bad. They're actually cool, like they do cool stuff. And I
Yeah,
like that
they
I
push
like
they push limits.
yeah, like I like that they try new things and that they experiment and change their style. I think that's super important. So
Yeah,
I can't say they've ever gotten stale. But oh, are you there?
yeah. The last thing that I heard was they never.
Yeah, so they've never gotten stale. Like and they've never just settled for their sound. But I don't know. I just have always thought they're kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's Bring Me the Horizon. So but anyway, I think that'd be
In
interesting
a sense,
to talk
that
about.
that
Oh, sorry.
that can also. I was gonna say, in a sense, that can also be gimmicky, like trying to change too much.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what we were talking about with the Post Malone song with him trying to do country. It's like, are you actually embracing the spirit of this new genre or style, or
Right?
are you just is it a gimmick, like you said?
Yeah,
You know, so. But I think it'd be interesting to talk about like a 10 out of 10 album or something like that. We should put that on the list of topics um,
yeah.
to go into a little bit deeper and try to list that. I think that's a good idea. Anyway,
I think
though, oh, sorry.
if you put a gun to my head and made me pick an album right now, I think I would probably pick Nightmare by Vince Sevenfold.
Yeah, I
um,
I think that'd be another one for me. 10 out of 10. If the only reason I might give it a 9 out of 10, the only reason is because I think Natural Born Killer could be a little better. Uh,
I can, yeah, I can see that.
I think
That is
Natural
kind
Born.
of like, yeah,
I think it's just the main riff is a little corny and kind of underwhelming.
yeah,
Which actually, I don't know if you know this. That's basically the same thing as Almost Easy.
yeah.
Same thing.
Um,
I don't know if you ever noticed that.
Not until just now,
Yeah,
but so yeah. I mean, I think either would be interesting if you wanted to try and pick a 10 album to discuss next week. But I think the hard part there would be us picking two different albums.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because
Um,
we're different in a lot of ways, but when it comes down to it, like the highest quality shit, I think that we usually agree.
yeah, except for
We'll talk
Guns N'
about it.
Roses.
Except for Guns N' Roses. They're great, man. No, we'll talk about it. Okay, let's get back to Ariana Grande and kind of get it wrapped up a little bit. So yeah, this album received pretty much critical acclaim for reasons that I can't fathom. Um,
Neither.
it's you know, Rolling Stones said I've got the Wikipedia open with different stuff. And it says like some of the most honest and inventive music of her career, and they dubbed the album an instant classic with a 100%. They said it was the other New York Times said it was her most sophisticated album yet. and they highlighted the perceived maturity of its subject matter. I would completely push back against that. I think this album is extraordinarily immature, all the way up to the very first line of the album, where she says, "How do you know if you're in the right relationship? Aren't you supposed to feel that shit?" Like, terrible fucking opening line to the album. Um, it's like how like it's like Eminem starting Houdini off with like first line on Houdini. I've been really wondering what the old me would say about the modern world. Would he say it's gay? I don't know. Time to talk about it. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you just exposed the whole thing. You just exposed the theme of the album. How do you know if you're in the right relationship? Aren't you supposed to feel that shit? And then everyone just claps, and it's like, so sophisticated, so deep. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know. Where's the deep song? Where's the deep lyrical content and themes on this album? I can't find it. Is it in the room with us right now? Like, I just stupid. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Like, this is another one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this album, is because of just again, it's like we don't even know how to think about music or art properly. Or look, maybe it's just a way that I view it that is different from everybody else, and that's fine. But I don't know. It's crazy to me that this, like, the safest album, like, safe is now considered good, and like immature is considered mature, and it's just crazy to me. I just feel like I'm in an alternate world. So yeah, rolling.
I feel like if I was Ariana Grande, and I released this album and they called this like my best album ever, I'd be disappointed.
I would be blown away. I just don't understand it. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I don't. Here, I've got the Rolling Stone summary on Metacritic. It's Grande's latest album is a gorgeously exposed journey to the end of her world, or at least what she believes to be the end. It's a divorce album that goes through all the stages of grief, and the singer navigates a new beginning with some of the most honest and inventive songs of her career so far. I'm sorry, all the stages of grief? You mean like anger and depression? Where did she mention these topics? Like, what? We can't be friends? Is that like...
To be fair, AI could have just generated that, not a real person.
Man, I don't know, Aubrey. I think that's an insult to AI.
Different. That's another episode.
That's another episode. I think it's crazy. Yeah, Variety. There's no question whose album this is, and like so many female superstars, Grande is tragically underrated as a musician. No, I think she's pretty much about as rated as she should be. Maybe a little overrated. She's not only a virtuoso singer, but a skilled vocal arranger and producer. She didn't produce it. Whose multi-tracked backing voices are like songs of their own. She didn't. Thank Max Martin for that. Embellishing and responding to her lead at like a troupe of attuned dancers. I could get with that. She has good background vocals, but again, that's Max Martin. That's not Ariana Grande. Like, fuck. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't want to go down the haterade. I think the point, and really the point of this episode, is like raise your standards. This isn't the worst album ever made, and I said that at the beginning. This isn't garbage, kind of garbage, but like this isn't the worst thing ever. But like, come on, raise the standard. If you are one of the people who is sitting there going, gosh, I'm having such a hard time finding music these days. Like, I don't know why. I feel so dissatisfied by the things that I listen to. Guess what? It's because of stuff like this. It's because this is the music they shove down your throat. This is the music that they tell you is perfect. The music that has no flaws, no risk, no edge, no nothing. So... and ultimately, without any risk, you don't get any reward. If you don't do something to like, because here's the thing: imagine if you just got everything you wanted, then right when you wanted it, then what'd be the point of trying for anything? There's no point. Luckily, that's not how the world works. You actually have to try to do things. You don't get a participation trophy. You have to actually do stuff to achieve stuff. And so music is the same way, art is the same way. Sometimes you have to listen to a long song or a song that might not be immediately appealing to you at first to find something that actually expands your mind and actually has an effect on you and changes your perspective on things. And that's what art's supposed to do to begin with. So, yeah, raise your standards. Don't listen to these shills. They suck. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm going to go through my little notes here on the song as a whole, and then we can wrap up. I'll kind of fire these off. I've pretty much said everything in here, but just want to kind of do the conclusion. So, the purpose of this song, let me be very clear here for everybody listening. The purpose is to sell records. That is the only reason this song exists. This is corporate sludge. They got a team of writers together. Max Martin is not a singular producer. Max Martin has a team of apprentices. He assigns one group to go work on the verse melody. He assigns another group to go work on the verse music. He assigns another one for the pre-chorus melody, and he'll work on the chorus melody. That is how these types of songs are made. And then once the song is completely created and produced and ready to go, they bring Ariana Grande in for 2 days and she sings all of the parts that they've written for her. She does all the background vocals they told her to do, and that's that. This song is not Ariana Grande's creativity or who she is. This song is corporate sludge. Okay? And the only reason it was made was to be popular and sell records by being played in Walmart 10,000 times. Okay, so I like talking about the purpose of the song because I think it's really important to understand what is this? What is this piece of art? Why was it made? Yeah, the genre style, it is pop. It's just nothing but pop. The song structure is about as simple as it gets. It's verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus, with a little intro. So I guess intro, verse, pre-chorus, but yeah, very simple. But I will say, they do make each part unique, and so there is good flow to it. Regarding the composition, I will say there's a lot of work that was put into this. There's lots of little details and layers and sounds in the background. The dynamics are really good musically. The vocal melodies are solid, except for the bridge, which I thought was crap. And then the bass line in the pre-chorus is awesome. It's a really cool sounding bass line. The mix, I forgot to update the mix. The mix is good. It's a general pop mix. No errors, no flaws, nothing that's crazy. It's just perfect pop mix. Lyrical content is dog shit. I wrote it is meaningless, meandering sludge that we've heard a billion times before. At its best, it's boring and bland, and at its worst, it is completely senseless, soulless, mind-numbing garbage. Yeah, some of the worst lyrics I've seen in a song. If you want good pop lyrics, go listen to Taylor Swift. Themes. In general, it's about liking a boy, but it doesn't really commit to that very strongly, in my opinion. There's no deeper theme, deeper meaning other than that on this song or the album as a whole. Yeah, and none of the topics, not even the surface level topics that they pick are interesting or unique in any way. We've heard this song a million times. It's just another one that's going to be, lost in the shuffle of songs about liking a boy. And there's no unique twist on it at all. So yeah, as far as the full, my full, view on the song, and the artistic merit of it, it's not the worst song that's ever been made. In fact, I think from the perspective of a songwriter, there are a lot of things that it does, quote unquote, well, and good songwriting techniques, keeping things interesting, good dynamic changes, lots of layering, but there is no risk, there is no edge. It is safe, bland, corporate sludge. Yeah, there is nothing to learn here. There is no deeper meaning to any of it. There is no risk and therefore no reward. It just exists. And I think people should expect more from the music that they listen to. So that's all I've got to say about that. Those are my notes. Woo. You still there?
Yep.
Oh, all right. Well, I think that's a wrap, man.
Yeah. do we want to decide what we're going to do for next week's episode, or we want to think about it?
I think let's think about it a little bit and maybe just see what we're feeling. I think in general, I'm personally leaning towards something of a little bit higher quality, whether that's like I think the idea of like a song that the writer doesn't like but that everybody else likes is a good idea. And I also think like a 10 out of 10 type of thing is cool too. So yeah, I don't know, we can talk about it and we'll figure it out and we'll let them know.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. Well, then that is it. That's a wrap on Ariana Grande. And yeah, this was That Boy Is Mine. So very cool. Again, make sure to follow us on our social medias and stuff. It's just at Simple Songwriting everywhere. And yeah, I mean, you got anything else?
Nope.
Cool. Well, let's hit him with a big Wale. Wale!
Wale!
Wale!